Well, good evening. I'm Greg Ferris. I'm president of the Forney ISD Board of Trustees, and I'd like to call this meeting to reconvene. We've been in closed session, so we're at item number 3. We'll now reconvene into regular board meeting. Moving on to welcome and our invocation. This evening, we are pleased to have Pastor Richie Mullis, who's been a part of Forney family for now 13 years. He's been serving as founders and senior pastors of Free Life Church, along with his wife. They have 3 daughters, Sydney, Ashton, and Eden. Pastor Richie has been a part of our community, actively served the Forney community through many outreach programs, including Taking It to the Streets, Random Acts of Kindness, Special Days to Honor Leaders, and the We Love Our Community campaign. Through that campaign, they've adopted Warren Middle School and Forney High School and graciously provide breakfast for our last Pastors and Principals Alliance breakfast. He has been a part. He says it has been my honor for Free Life pastors and staff to be part of the partnering with the Forney ISD principals to make an impact in our schools during the Back to School Bash and monthly breakfast. So at this time, I'd like to introduce to you Pastor Richie Mullis. Would you rise, please? He leads us in our invocation.
I just want to begin before I say anything, before I pray, I want to say what an honor it is to be invited to be here tonight. It may sound like just another month to you guys, but 13 years ago, I came in this building for the first time and didn't know a soul. Me and my wife, my 3 daughters, we came to town, they were 5, 3, and 1, and got the phone book out at that time. Started calling people. Hey, I'm starting a church. Are you interested? Got a lot of people hanging up on me. And go through the neighborhoods and drive-throughs at McDonald's and just tell people about Jesus and tell people about our church. And 13 yees later, got a little over 1,000 of us at the church and 40 acres of property. And I just want to say, the reason I'm saying that is the investment you guys made. When we first started, we didn't have a facility, a building. So we just started renting the school, and the schools here were so gracious to us to let us come in, and we drove a lot of principals and administrators crazy because we were setting up and tearing down every week for about 5 years. And but because of that, we had a building to get started, moved to the theater, moved to another school, and another school, actually 4 schools here in Forney. And thanks to the superintendent and all the leadership, we were able to get on our feet. And I just want to say thank you for that. And I want to commend you for the job you're doing. I was in youth ministry for many years before I came here, and been all around the world doing youth ministry, and even in this country. And I'm going to tell you, there is no school system like Forney, Texas. There's really not. And I'm not saying that I'm about to get out of here, so I have nobody to impress. But I'm just telling you, guys are doing such a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the honor of being here. Father, we love you tonight. And we know that we can't make our next decision or take our next breath without you. And Lord, we need you tonight to lead us, to guide us, to grant unto us wisdom. And Lord, strength and even encouragement for anyone that's here tonight that's struggling with discouragement. Help us to remember that the walls fell for Joshua right after his greatest season of discouragement. God, I just pray that anybody in here tonight that's struggling with discouragement or even loneliness or depression during this Christmas season, that God, you just help us to remember that if we'll stay strong in you and stay in faith, our walls are about to fall. And Lord, we thank you for leading us tonight. We thank you for our great superintendent and our great board and leadership here. And Lord, that you would protect our children, continue to give favor and influence to the coaches and teachers and the principals that pour into these kids on a daily basis. We thank you for great academics and a continued legacy that Forney is building and continuing to pass on. We thank you, Lord Jesus, for everything you're doing. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Moving on to item B, we'll have our pledges of the allegiance to the U.S. flag and the Texas flag. First, our secondary student of the month is Miss Emily Howard, 8th grade student at Brown Middle School, and Dr. Pam Luttrell will do her introductions. Following that, we'll have the Texas pledge with the elementary student of the month, Hannah Houston, a 6th grader at Ray. Dr. Barbie Donahue, principal at Ray, will introduce her. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Luttrell.
Good evening, School Board and Dr. Terry. I have the great pleasure of introducing Emily Howard to you. She is an 8th grader at Brown Middle School. She is one of the famous Howard family of Forney, Texas, 8 brothers and sisters. There's Lucy and Sarah at Smith, Hannah at Brown Middle School with us in 7th grade, Harrison and Thomas are at North, and Richard is a recent North Forney graduate. Emily, we choose our student of the month by teachers voting. And so the teachers voted on Emily, and here's some of the things they said. Emily serves on our student council. She dances with our Ruby Bells. She sings in our advanced women's choir, and she frequently performs on stage as a member of our advanced theater. She's held a lead role in the Brown Middle School Theater Fall Show, and her talent and work ethic will contribute to in upcoming roles in the UIL One Act and the Spring Musical. Oh, that's already decided. She is in all honors classes, and she maintains a hard A average while participating in athletics, cross country in particular. Mostly, Emily just lights up a room. When you see her smile, it's great. And so I'm going to go off script a little and say that we went on a student council trip, and I got to go with the kids. And trying to be real conscientious, I put a piece of tape over every kid's door, piece of Scotch tape, and went to bed. And the next morning when I woke up, there were 7 pieces of Scotch tape over my door. I think I might know who that ringleader was, I'm just saying. But Emily is one of those kids that while there are 9 Howard children, each of them are amazing kids in their own way. And Emily is one of those kiddos, whether she knows it or not. When you see Emily, you always get this great smile. You always feel lifted up. It's a little mischievous, but that's what makes it so fun. So we're proud to introduce Emily Howard.
Good evening, everyone. I'm super excited to introduce Hannah Houston, and Hannah is a 6th grade dual language student at Ray. She's going to say the pledges tonight in both languages, so those of us who can say the Spanish pledge, feel free to join her because she's a little bit nervous about saying that solo. She is the daughter of Richard and Shelley Houston, and she's the sister to Shelby and Luke. They coordinated tonight, and Shelby's a little bit embarrassed about that. Outside of school, Hannah loves to invent new things, sing, play the piano, paint, and she loves animals. She's the musician and artist of the family. At school, Hannah participates in honor choir and helps with the garden club. Hannah's favorite subjects are reading and science, and she enjoys learning Spanish every day. Hannah's teachers, both past and present, had this to say about her. Hannah is the perfect example of an excellent student. Her assignments and projects in class are always outstanding. She's kind, gracious, intelligent, compassionate, and goes above and beyond to help and encourage her peers to do their best. It's an honor and a blessing to be Hannah's teacher every day. Because Hannah is bilingual, I know she was not real excited, so I did print the Spanish pledge for her. I see the English ones up here. So we're super excited to see what happens in her future. I know we'll keep up with her. I'm sure we'll see her in the newspaper and maybe a student of the month when she's in secondary schools. So we're excited to introduce Hannah Houston.
Go rise, Ms. Howard.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Honra la bandera de Texas. Te juro lealtad a ti. Texas, un estado ante Dios, único e indivisible.
Hannah, congratulations. That is yours. Take a picture of the middle. Over there. Ms. Howard, Thank you all for taking time to come tonight and raising such great children that we get to have on a part-time basis, so thank you very much. Let's moving on then to recognitions. Item 4, we have some student recognitions, and at this time, I'd like to turn this over to Ms. Sandy Whitley, Director of Future Ready Instruction, who introduced our National Merit Commended Scholars and National Merit Hispanic Commended Scholars. So some very exciting announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris, Dr. Terry, board members. The National Merit Scholarship Program is an academic competition for recognition and scholarships that began in 1955. High school students enter the National Merit Program by taking the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, which we know as the PSAT or the NMSQT. Of the 1.6 million entrants, approximately 50,000 or 3% with the highest PSAT or NMSQT qualify for recognition in the National Merit Scholarship Program. In September, these high scores were notified through their schools, and they have qualified as either commended or semifinalist. In late September, more than 2/3 of the high scores received letters of commendation in recognition of their outstanding academic promise. Forney ISD is proud to recognize Samuel or Sam Ivy and Ryan Ruiz as National Merit Commended Scholars representing Forney High School. If you come forward. Stay there. There's more. In addition, every year the National Hispanic Recognition Program, the NHRP, recognizes about 5,000 of the 250,000 Hispanic Latino juniors who take the PSAT or the NMSQT. Forney ISD is proud to recognize Jordan Minor and Ryan Ruiz as National Merit Hispanic Commended Scholars, both representing Forney High School.
What an honor to see those, and to have that many from our campuses is quite a fate for the district at any time to have one, but to have that many in one night, what an honor it is to all of us. So thank you for your hard work. Thank you, families and teachers and everybody that helped make that possible. Next, we'll be moving on then to item 3, Eagle Scout Project, and Dr. Pam Luttrell, principal at Brown Middle School, and Don Sheets, science teacher at Brown Middle School.
Good evening again. Don and I were very excited when Austin Bagan came to us to talk to us about doing a Eagle Scout project. What I heard was it was something in our scope and it was free. So I just got real excited and went and got Dawn, and she can actually tell you more about the project, but we were real pleased. Austin is a former Brown Bear. He has a sister who's a Brown Bear. And junior? You're a junior? A senior. I'm sorry, he's a senior at North Forney. So, and he completed his Eagle Scout project for us. So Dawn can tell you a lot more about it.
Austin approached me and Dr. Luttrell and asked if he could go ahead and do his Eagle Scout project. It's actually a weather station that he has placed on campus. It has a live feed directly to a computer in my room, and so we can basically use it as part of our scope and sequence to teach weather, all the different local weather. So basically what's going to happen in the next couple of months is that we're going to use it for one of our units to talk about barometric pressure and the changing of that and different things like that so they can see low and high pressure zones. So I'm really excited, and I know Austin was one of my former students, and so it was really cool to see it come full circle. He's actually studying meteorology, correct? Next year, or planning to, in college. Okay, so he's actually going to go into the field of it. And so his sister will get the benefit of using his weather station this year.
New principal? Come on down. That's another great honor, and those are fun nights to share those with everybody in the family, so thank you for being here. And then moving on to another special recognition tonight. At this time, Mr. Rick Gear has a very special announcement we'd like to share with the public.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris and Dr. Terry and board members. At this time, I'd like to bring up and ask Danny Noah, who is the Southeast Area Director of Fellowship of Christian Athletes, to present this honor.
Well, good evening. A few weeks ago, 700 people gathered at the Las Colinas area at the Irving Convention Center for our Fellowship of Christian Athletes Sharing the Victory Dinner. And it was my privilege to present the Neil Jeffrey Leadership Award. This is an award presented by the North Texas Fellowship of Christian Athletes for a volunteer who has served well to help us make sure the message of FCA and the impact of FCA gets out to the community and beyond. And this year, honoree was Coach Neil Weaver, the Director of Athletics right here in Forney ISD. Coach Weaver has been a huge advocate for what we do to help us impact coaches and athletes, and also helped us grow what's taking place here, where every secondary campus has some type of active FCA program going on. He has also helped us develop the FCA Character Coach program, where we partner a member from the community with a team and their coach to walk with them through the season, to encourage them, and come once a week and speak to them. It is the largest active program in the FCA programs in the United States. And Coach Weaver's been a big part of that. It is my honor to present our award, the Neil Jeffrey Leadership Award, to Coach Neil Weaver. What I failed to say is that Coach Weaver was in Italy that night, so we did not get to put it in his hand. And so tonight, that's why we are honoring here. We're proud of him and his efforts to serve this community.
May I for 1 second? Yes, sir. I would really surprise and shock everyone if I just said thank you and went and took a picture, but those of you who know me well, I know I can't do that. Really, I just want to say this. Many thanks to Danny Noah and Stacy Kennedy and the FCA staff here in Forney. Really, this is just indicative of, this is representative of a great group of people, not just within our coaching ranks, but also within our Character Coach initiative. There are people throughout the community that are putting lots and lots of hours pouring into our student athletes. And certainly around every corner in Forney ISD, great things are happening beyond the classroom and beyond the court and beyond the field that really grow great kids in a great community. So I feel like this is really just representative of that. So thanks, Danny.
We're moving on to item, item 5, acceptance of a donation. At this time, Ms. Crabtree, principal of Claiborne Elementary, will now introduce the PTO members and possible donation of the Claiborne Elementary.
Now we're ready.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you again, Board, for giving us this opportunity to present tonight. I have my wonderful PTO board members here, if you guys want to come on up. And they are presenting a check to Claiborne Elementary for $8,000 that we are asking for your approval for. This $8,000 is going to go to every grade level is getting $1,000 to spend in their classroom for supplies or things that their students need. So we're asking for your acceptance on this approval of $8,000 they would like to donate to Claiborne Elementary.
Thank you, Ms. Crabtree. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Carroll, have a second?
Second.
Johnson? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none, so it is approved. Thank you very much. Item number 6 is public forum. At this time, no one has signed in, I don't believe. Is that correct? Okay, we have no one signed in to address the board, so we'll move on to item number 7. Reports, the next 5 items of reports only require no action from the board. First, we have 7A, the monthly financial report. Mr. Chase will present the monthly finances at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. The monthly financial report for period ending October 31st is included on page 7 of the board book for your review. Just as a summary.
Mr. Chase, would you check your microphone?
Is it on now?
Thank you.
All right. The revenue recognized or collected for the month was $6.5 million. Expenditures for the month was $8.4 million. Year-to-date revenue recognized was $17.6 million, or 21% of the amount estimated. And year-to-date expenditures is $29.1 million, or 33% of the amount estimated or appropriated. So both of these percentages are roughly equal to what we've seen in our historic data that we have. So we're on track with our budget, and as we should be at this point in time in the year. Moving on to debt service, the revenue recognized for the month was $256,000. We had no expenditures for the month. Year-to-date revenue recognized is $402,000, or 2% of the amount estimated. Expenditures was $13.4 million, or 72% of the amount appropriated. And again, both of these percentages are in line with historic data. Finally, the cash and investments on hand in the general fund, food service, debt service, and capital project program for October through October 31st was $41.1 million. That's the financial report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chase. Moving on to item B, it's a school board compliance and noncompliance of continuing education report. Completion of required annual training is an obligation and expectation of any board member under State Board of Education rules. I'm happy to report the following board members have completed and/or exceeded the required annual continuing education: Chad Johnson, Barbara Jo Green, Christopher Andrews, Scott Regan, Heath Carroll, Becky Dobbs, and Greg Ferris. So thank you, board members, for giving of your time to complete your continuing education. We're moving on then to item C, master plan update. Ms. Kim Horsack will come at this time. She's Chief of Information, Innovative, and Technology Services.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Dr. Terry, board, just going to briefly go over the three items that we currently have going on with our master planning update. There may be 4. The first one is the Ray and Smith additions. I'm going to invite Mr. Von Gallagher up to kind of walk you through where we are on the conversion of Ray and Smith Elementaries to Ray and Smith Intermediate. Mr. Gallagher.
I'll give kind of a brief rundown on where things are. Smith and Ray are basically on the same track, so I won't duplicate that. Things are moving really well. Things are progressing. The trades are doing what they need to do out on the project. We were very successful with our library conversion over Thanksgiving. Thanks to the staffs at both campuses for helping us make that take place. That'll really help enhance getting the project done, and it was a crucial step in what this week. Have an exterior brick going on, the roofing going on as well, interior framing, got the metal shade structures that go up as well, and the library demo is complete. Next week, we'll be pouring the concrete for the learning stairs. I'll show you a slide on that in just a second. That's going to be a really impressive feature. Exterior brick and roofing will continue. So basically, not to just read a list to you, by Christmas break, the buildings will be in the dry and we'll be inside. We'll still have work to do outside, but we can really make our own luck then, and we're not as captive to the weather. We're in great shape for the schedules on both projects, so it's not as critical as it sounds, but it just eases the pressure on everything taking place. So if you look here at Smith, you can see kind of what I referenced. You can see the DENS glass going up on the outside of the facility, and you can see the walls inside the facility taking shape. There's Ray, same exact schedule. If you see in the top left, you can see a picture of the learning stairs. They're going to be really impressive. That took quite a bit of coordination on how to get those in there and how to get everything tied together. But the guys at Huckabee have been a giant help on those things. They helped us coordinate on how to get that done and how to get it done in a manner that it was constructible, which was kind of a key component, being that it's in the center of the facility. So all things are going well there. Any questions on those facilities? On the FLA, the bathroom remodel is complete. Exterior paint's in process, almost complete. Tree removal, and big item is just still trying to get our canopy in. Canopy should come in right about Christmas break, so we can get that done hopefully while the students are out. We're a little hostage to that manufacturing process, but we're checking on them on a daily basis, and that's what we're anticipating to happen. We're ready to get that behind us. Here's kind of some pictures you can see. That campus really, like I said last month, turned out very phenomenal. I don't know that I could have projected what they designed for it to turn out that way, but very proud of the way that turned out. Questions on anything? Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. The next update is Criswell Elementary. In order to, as you know, we are going to put the Dual Language Academy at Criswell starting next year. So we wanted to get that building as efficient as possible to house as many neighborhood students as we possibly could. So we looked at some interior projects that would use our annual maintenance budget and just do some interior work only. If you look on the left, that is a current floor plan at Criswell. On the right, there's a few areas that have boxes around them, and I think this kind of highlights them a little bit more in yellow. And what we looked at is really some non-learning areas, seeing if there was a way for us to convert those to learning spaces. So what we've come up with is taking this area right here, if I can use my mouse, in the middle of Criswell, adjacent to the library. Currently, that's a closet and some very small areas. We're going to break into an area that's large enough for a classroom. Down here in the bottom left, and it's kind of in an awkward place, that slide pops up, but in the bottom left-hand side, they are currently using one of those rooms as a teacher's lounge. We're going to be able to convert that back into a learning space. And then they have what's called the Mustang Room, and if you walk in the back of the building, it's a very large holding area that's not currently being used and utilized to its fullest extent. That will turn into 2 classrooms down in that area. And then where it says CLC on the far left-hand side right here, that's currently a custodial closet and a little inefficient L-shaped room. We're going to be able to open that up and give the teachers a place to work and really collaborate together and do some adult learning. So all in all, we're going to be able to recapture 4 learning spaces in Criswell that we did not currently have. As I said, those 4 additional spaces are all internal. There's no external remodeling going on at Criswell, and that will be paid for with our yearly maintenance budget. So any questions on Criswell or what that project looks like? Okay. Oh, yes, sir.
What's the schedule on that?
I believe it is going to start this summer. As soon as they're out the door, the last day of school, we're going to get going on it. They did do a walkthrough with the city, and everything looks good to move forward with that. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions?
I might have missed it. Are we doing this internal with our staff, or is that going to a contractor?
Gallagher will actually be working that project as well.
Okay.
They're adding to their list. And we're currently working on pricing. I think that one of the big things we had to do first was walk with code inspection to see what level we're going to have to really engage at the maintenance projects that we're proposing. So we'll be coming back to you with some a little more specifics on pricing a little bit later, and we'll hopefully pull this into the bid package with some of the other projects that we've discussed this spring.
Any other questions on Criswell? All right. The last item in our master planning update is the scoreboard at Citibank Stadium. This is a picture of the old scoreboard as it was coming down. As you can see, it's on 4 supports, and it was leaning at a pretty good angle. They came in and removed that, drilled 3 new places for piers. Those supports have gone up. They're a little taller, a little more substantial, but there's only 3 instead of 4. And they actually have installed the cross beams. So that project is moving along. It is on schedule to be completed by Christmas break at Citibank Stadium. Any questions on the scoreboard? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morsak. Moving on to item D, our new website update. At this time, Ms. Kristen Zastapool, Executive Director of Marketing and Communications, will share an update.
Thank you. So we are excited that we are preparing to launch a brand new district website. And so I've given you just a sample here, but I will click on this and go out to the actual demo site here in just a moment. Really the goal behind this was the current system we're using is a learning management system, and that will still remain in place. Teachers' pages will remain in Canvas, but we're switching to a content management system for the public view for our website. It's mobile friendly, which means it will resize if you're on your phone versus your iPad versus your computer, which is really great for our community because we all know it's so much easier to access things in the palm of our hands from our cell phones. The great thing about it is it's also ADA compliant. We're reorganizing some of the content to make it more friendly for our community members as well to be able to find things faster. And it integrates with a new mobile app that we'll be bringing on board later in the spring, as well as our mass notification system that sends out calls and texts and emails, things like that. So we anticipate going live in January with this new site. And at the time of the launch, we are going to ask for feedback. This spring we'll be making some edits and making sure that things are really in the places that they need to be. So it'll be a little bit of a work in progress this spring. We will be moving the campus homepages and the department homepages that are currently in Canvas out to this site, to the public site. It's just user-friendly, it will resize to their phone, but we're going to give our campuses and departments some time to do that. So the final completion for moving those out will be this summer. We've set a deadline of June 30th of 2019. We have some campuses that are really ready to make the transition and maybe doing that a little bit earlier in the spring. We're going to be providing training and walking them through that to get that set up. So what we'd like to do now is just click on this and show you a working demo. Our new site also has the capability to have video in the background. So this is a full color site, but we just happened to select the black and white video we did earlier in the year as the demo. So you'll notice we have a new navigation bar up here with information. We also have the ability to put in quick link buttons. So one of these, and we can change these out. So in August, you'll probably see a back to school information button. So these will change out depending on the season, as well as things we can track our statistics and see which pages are visited the most. So we will put those in here as well. And then of course our news and our social media accounts are also linked on here as well. So are there any questions about this upcoming site that we're looking at launching?
Questions? Looks great.
Great. And just to show you the resize.
Just need to add an email.
You'll notice it doesn't matter what size my window is, it's going to structure it where it's friendly.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item E is our staffing update. Mr. Rick Gear, Chief of Human Services, we'll turn over to you at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris, Dr. Terry, board members. I'm going to actually ask Mr. Riggs to come up here in just a little bit and share in the presentation with me. But a couple of things that we wanted to point out in our staffing update is one of the things about our efficiency and what we're doing with our allocations. And so even before school started, 4 teachers were moved. And I'd like to just take a moment to thank our principals and those teachers and for their willingness to do what was in the best interest of kids. And that's never an easy thing to do after they've been assigned to a campus, to come back and reallocate that. But their spirit and how they willingness to help the district and what was best for kids was pretty amazing. And our campus principals were also very generous with that. The next thing we talked about, the use of overflow campuses. Several of our campuses are being used as overflow right now to help us balance the counts as well as allow us to meet the requirement of a 1 to 22 on a K through 4, which is dictated by the state of Texas. And it cuts down on our waivers opportunities as well. Also, as you may well know, our staffing this past year on a K through 4 has been 22 to 1, as I just mentioned. Our 5 through 6 has been done on a 25 to 1 in the past, and our high school from middle school and high school is done from on a 23 to 1. We believe as we're looking at this that we're exploring the opportunity or the possibility of staffing the intermediate on a 23 to 1 as well. Because of the design of it will be very similar to that of a middle school, and we believe this will have an impact on being more efficient, even though it's a lower percentage, it will actually be more efficient because we're actually working with 2 campuses instead of 9 campuses at this point. Also, with the reconfigurations I just mentioned, we estimated that the year 1, the impact will be, if, for example, if we had done this reconfiguration this year with our current staff and our current numbers, it probably would have saved us 7 FTEs. As I was explained to you, our new position ratios, I'm going to let Mr. Riggs step up here in just a moment, kind of explain this process, but for the last 2 years, we've been building our staff and employing and hiring people on a 10 to 1 ratio.
Good evening. Those strategies that Mr. Gear was just reviewing for you have resulted in this kind of data for us in terms of being able to show that our student-to-staff ratio has changed to become more efficient in terms of the use of our personnel, where in 2016, 2017, if you look back, we were at 8.7 students per every staff member on average, and that ratio has changed over the last couple of years to be 9.2. And so those strategies we've been using have helped us be more efficient with our staffing. I want to switch gears here for a little bit and present on a related topic, but just give you a quick overview of some staffing comparisons that we have for the district. This fall, we've actually received some feedback from some principals indicating the need for additional support personnel. That's been a common thread that's come up from a number of principals in terms of a need that they have perceived. As a result, we've gone back and tried to gather some data to look at some benchmarks as to how we're doing. And so we're going to present a few slides here to just give you a quick overview of kind of how we compare with some other districts. The districts that we chose, and this was, again, just a pretty quick decision to give us an idea of how we compare with other districts, are listed here on the left-hand side of the screen. We tried to get a combination of surrounding districts as well as districts that had some similarities or maybe at a growth stage where we're headed in terms of in the future. And so just kind of a composite view of different districts out there. This is pulled from the TEA website. It is looking at 17-18 PEAM snapshot data, which is about a year old. So it's not current. We can't get all this data from all these districts that quick and turn that around and get it aggregated. They just don't provide that for us. This first slide is the student-to-teacher ratio, and what it points out is that on average, our teachers are serving about 0.8 students more than this comparison group on average. So it's not out of the ballpark, we're in the ballpark. We are actually tied for the highest student-to-teacher ratio within groups in this comparison group that we've identified. The comparison group, if we took all those districts listed, put them together, average student out for all their teaching staff, they would be averaging 16 students for every one teacher. The next slide, similar in terms of what it's looking at, but this actually looks at the teacher percentage of the entire staff for districts. So if you looked at all these teachers again and added them up as the total percentage of their collective staffs, you look at the comparison group, and that comparison group, 51.6% of the staff is made up of teachers for the comparison group as a whole. In Forney ISD, teachers make up 53.1% of our staff. So again, slightly higher. That's not a bad thing, not a good thing at all. We're just kind of showing you some data here in terms of how we compare. Student-to-staff ratio. And this is looking at total staff. So not only here are we just looking at teachers, but we're adding in bus drivers, custodians, principals, central office administrators, all of those total staff members. And again, when we look at that, comparison group averaged 8.2 students for every staff member. In Forney ISD, we're averaging 8.9. Again, this was an area that we had the highest student-to-staff ratio within that comparison group. And the last one that I want to bring to your attention is the student to non-teaching staff member ratio. And this is specifically looking at all the positions that really support our core mission of education but aren't directly related to it. Again, it's the bus drivers, counselors, nurses, total staff all poured into this, excluding teachers. And when we look at our comparison group, their average is each staff member basically supports 17 students, and in Forney ISD, that same non-teaching staff member averages supporting 19 students, okay? I know that's a lot of ratios and percentages. Wanted to just give you a quick overview of how we're comparing. We're not making any recommendations on this tonight, but we just wanted you to see this because we do know that we are coming up on time of year of making recommendations for new personnel, making preliminary plans for budget, and so we wanted you to just get an idea of some of the data that we're looking at in response to some of the needs that have been communicated by our staff. Go ahead and go to this point. I think when we look at this in terms of conclusions that we can draw, the first one, when I look at that data piece as a whole, I feel very confident in telling you that I think we're doing a very efficient job in providing staffing for our district. You looked at all those ratios, and our averages in terms of measuring efficiency, we're very favorably compared to other districts. And just our continued growth in efficiency as we serve more students over the last couple of years is a sign that we are more efficient. What we plan on doing with this is continuing to look at this, maybe dig a little bit deeper, maybe do some additional research in terms of how some other districts are providing support for their teachers. And that will certainly have an impact on our personnel recommendations that we bring back to you later on in the spring. We are hoping to be able to get new positions for our elementary staffing approved in January. That would be the ideal setup for us from the standpoint of moving forward with our changes of assignments for the reconfiguration plans, is if we're able to get those approved in January. I have one more, I think. And this also is a little bit of a switch gears, and then I'll be happy to answer questions about either one of these topics I've addressed, or we can come back and talk about the efficiency strategies. As you know, we are very much moving forward with the plans for reconfiguration for our 5th and 6th grade campuses. And that is going to have a significant impact on our teaching staff and where they're teaching next year. And there will be a number of folks on different campuses or different grade levels than what they've been in the past. Just to give you a quick update on this, teacher surveys have been collected. I mean, we've collected surveys, preferences from over 300 teachers. Principals, administrative staff work together in terms of designing that survey. Principals have met. Certainly they were involved in meeting and putting together the survey. We've already met with them once to try to work through the selection process. We're going to be having another meeting in December and another one in the early part of January to finalize what that process will look like. But I do want to tell you that that process is complicated. There's a number of factors listed there that we are going to have to consider as we make those decisions. We have specialized programs, dual language, special ed, Title I, all of those will have an impact. Certainly, we have told our teachers that their preferences, their voice is going to be heard. We've provided a survey. Principals have the right to be involved in that process, and so they're going to have a voice. Growth in new positions. We are committed that everyone is having a job. The reconfiguration is not costing anyone a job in our district. Certification is important. There's some certification changes that happen between 4 and 8 and EC through 4, so we have to be mindful of that. And then we certainly want to be equitable in our staffing. We would hate for any group of kids in any particular community or any principal not to have a fair, equitable process that they would be subject to. So we want to make sure that process is fair and equitable for all. I do think it is important for if you talk to some individuals and they're concerned about this to realize what's going on in December and January is just one layer of this process. Right when this process is over, we will be commencing our regular transfer process. We're going to have some resignations. We're going to have some promotions. We're going to have some people leaving the district. There are going to be opportunities for people to move around if they didn't get their ideal slot. There's going to be some options for them to move. Now, I can't guarantee you everyone is going to be exactly perfectly happy and get their top choice, but this is just one layer of the selection process and the decision process on making assignments that we're going to be working through. And there will be additional opportunity come February 1 and on for teachers to communicate a preference about an assignment that may be more to their liking. I think that's it for me, Mr. Gear.
I just had a couple things in closing is just to give you a little bit of data that we added 75 positions this past year, which really was 18 short of our 10-to-1 ratio. So those 18 positions that was not allocated. With the anticipated growth of over 700 students, so if you do the 10-to-1, that's 70 plus the 18 that we haven't allocated. So we're looking at probably bringing to you in the next month or so about 88 to 90 positions for next year. Also, one other thing that I thought was really important, just wanted to reiterate it one more time, was the percentage of teachers to our support staff. As Mr. Riggs showed you, 53% of our teachers, our staff are teachers. As our district grows and our demographics change, we are finding that certain resources that are provided by larger counties are lacking in our county. So one of the things that we're really, Mr. Riggs and I are looking into is what does that look like? Because if we truly believe that we're going to provide nets for all our kids, there are certain things that we're going to have to start providing from a support position. And so those are some of the things we'll be looking at over the next month or so and bringing back to y'all to share that information with you as well. Any questions you'd like from Mr. Riggs or myself?
Any questions from the board?
When you look at teacher ratios in a classroom is driven by the 22, 23, 25 to 1. So teacher ratios are pretty easy to look at across the district. But when you look at total staff, what's your indicator or how do you control being too efficient? As in, if you stretch that out on that chart to where we're doing more work with less people, do you use turnover? Do you use burnout? How do you control that you're not asking our staff to do too much?
I think one of the things is just looking at this data, which we're doing, is just being aware of what that data is and being able to also look down at some other factors that impact this, because certainly there are some other factors that do impact your staffing ratios. So we look at that, and we'll add some additional features on there. I mean, things like the percent of students that are economically disadvantaged, the percent of at-risk students, those kinds of things, percent mobility. All those have factors coming into play that we look at. Informal feedback, listening to principals. Again, I kind of introduced my comment that this was feedback that, for me, started with meetings that we had this fall with our principals, just talking about what do you need, what is it that we can do to support you, and it was just a common thread coming out of that they needed support in this area that wasn't necessarily teaching staff. And again, I think from my history here, I know when we came out of the financial situation that we were in from 2011 to 2016, our first priority was putting teachers back in the classroom to the extent that we could. And I think we all agree that that's probably the right thing to do. But I think having gone a few more years, we just need to step back and look at these ratios. And I think one of those aspects is looking at the details of that, looking at some specific positions and seeing how we're doing on that, in that area. Counseling staff, specialists in certain positions, instructional coaches. There's just some ways that we can be supportive of teachers that we're efficiently staffing, and they're handling a full caseload of kids, but we need to make sure that we are supporting them with support staff that helps them serve those kids.
Thank you. And Mr. Geary, your comment about the nets that we used in an illustration one time,
Yes.
that no student gets through the net, so we've got enough nets, that's kind of my focus.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Moving on then to item 8, consent agenda. The next items here, item 8A, minutes of the November 5, 2018 regular meeting, minutes of November 15, 2018 special called meeting. Item 8C is approved budget amendments. Item 8D, approve and adopt the 2021 school calendar year as a final reading. Item 8E, approve the contract with Galler Construction. Item 8F, approve request for maximum class size waiver exception. The board may take these each separately or collectively. Do I have a motion or a preference?
Mr. Ferris, I make a motion that we approve them collectively.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve them collectively by Mr. Andrews. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Green. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you very much. Moving on then to item 9, consideration and possible approval of the 2019-2020 attendance boundary modification plan. Our presenters this evening will be Ms. Kim Morzak, Chief of Information, Innovative and Technology, and then following that, Mr. Rick Gear. Mr. Gear will present the possible transfer allowances. So at this time, I turn the floor over to Ms. Morzak and Mr. Gear.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris, Dr. Terry, Board. As you recall, at the public hearing, last meeting we had, we presented to you new plan, Plan 6. And it was a slight modification of the original plan that we presented to the public in 2 informational sessions that we held, which was originally called Plan 4. Since the beginning, the new north-south line has been moved to 740 Ridgecrest. This plan continues to hold that line. What it did was shift a few of our houses down into the right. So we had some areas of Lewis that we shifted over to Crosby and some areas of Crosby that we shifted over to Blackburn. That balanced things out a little bit. If you'll recall, it allowed us to have some area, some breathing room at Lewis where houses are coming up very, very quickly, and we saw a very large 30% growth jump in 1 year. And it also gave us capacity at both Crosby and Blackburn in this plan. The plan, as you recall, impacted the fewest number of students possible. And then through the feedback that we received from you and from our stakeholders, we looked at allowing some exceptions to keep them the most number of students in the most stable feeder pattern as we possibly can. And so at this time, Mr. Gear is going to present those exceptions to you that accompany this Plan 6.
Ms. Morsick lets me have the fun part. So, yes, and I think just to reiterate what Ms. Morsick said is that we took the information that was presented not only on when people responded to to the focus thing that we sent out, the survey, but also listening to our board members, at our forums that we did at the campuses. So we really took this into information. But at the Plan 6 exceptions, these affect what we call the impacted area. These are the students who reside north of Highway 80, but are now zoned south in the south side feeder pattern as of the next school year. These will also be part of our administrative regulations that we will place those in. Current sixth graders in that impacted area will have a one-time option to choose whether they want to continue on to be brown bears and falcons, or if they want to go to the new realignment and be south side campuses with Warren Middle School or Forney High School. So they'll get a one-time option to make that decision. Our thought process on this is that they've gone through elementary school thinking they were going to be brown bears and falcons, and so we want to give them the opportunity if they so choose. The next exception will be the current fourth and fifth graders that have siblings at Brown and or North Forney will also have that one-time option to make that same decision, whether to continue through the north feeder pattern or go to the south side with the new attendance zone modifications. One thing I did want to make note of is that because I think I've shared before with the board, we currently on a two-tier transportation system. As we go into this new educational model, we'll be moving to a three-tier system. And so in normal cases, we do not provide transportation for transfer students, but we'll be able to accommodate that with this new three-tier system. And so we're really excited about giving them that opportunity so they won't have any transportation won't be an issue in their decision-making as part of that. The third thing I'd like to bring to your attention, as you saw earlier in the master planning update, Ms. Morsack and Ms. Weber have been digging into Criswell to see when we can find some extra room. We listened to our community. And so current kindergartners through third grade students who reside in Brookville Estates will have a one-time option to choose to continue and stay at Criswell Elementary. Once they reach fifth grade and start moving into the intermediate, they will return to Smith Intermediate School because they will be zoned for the north side still at that point. Transportation will not be provided to these students because there will be no routes running through that area because that will be that particular area will be a north side campus. Do you have any questions for Ms. Morsack or myself?
Any questions from the board of the presentation you've seen?
Just one.
I think Mr. Johnson was first.
Sure.
Mr. Gear, I noticed on both of those slides regarding the first two exceptions that the deadline to make that election is March 1st.
Yes, sir, and I apologize.
Does that apply to the third group as well, the Brookville Estates?
Yes, sir, and I apologize. I meant to mention that in my notes. I had that. Way we're going to, if the board does approve this, these exceptions, then what we'll do is look at who that affects, what student individual that affects. They will get a certified letter from the district. We will send them an email. If we have not heard back from them within a certain amount of time, then we'll make a personal phone call to them to make sure that we contact 100%. Right. And so that we'll give them an opportunity to choose. We will ask that the deadline be March 1st because that will give us an opportunity to make sure we have proper allocations at the campus. Thank you for reminding me.
I just want to make sure we're going to make every effort to make sure that
yes,
affected kids know
yes,
they
sir.
need to make a choice.
We'll make sure 100%. And to the point where if we get down to it, we'll make personal phone calls to those ones that haven't reached back out to us.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Carroll.
The slide for Brookville, Brookville Estates?
Yes, sir.
Brookville Estates is slated for the north side feeder as we've laid it out in Plan 6.
Yes, sir.
So this exemption is just allow them to attend, those current students to attend Criswell, but future students in Brookville, a 3-year-old right now coming through will follow the plan as laid out, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So it's just the existing students?
Yes, sir. It's current kindergarten through third grade students as of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, I'd like to call for a motion as has been presented. To have a motion?
Ferris, I make a motion. Excuse me. Mr. Ferris, I make a motion to approve the rezoning guidelines as presented.
Do I have a second to the motion, please? Second. Ms. Dobbs, seconded. Any further questions from the board? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I hear none, so it is passed. Moving on then to item 10, the first and final reading revisions of Board Policy FDB Local. Mr. Rick Gear will present the revisions to policy at this time. Mr.
Thank
Gear.
you, Mr. Ferris. Due to the attendance zone modification and the exceptions that have been provided in administrative regulations, the administration is seeking approval for some minor changes in FDB Local. Under our inter-district transfer request, it says that an elementary school student shall only be transferred to campus within the feeder pattern for the middle school. We're changing the word middle school to intermediate school. There is an exception that will refer back to the administrative regulations, which will constitute what I just shared with you just a few minutes ago, those three exceptions. Under change of residence, our current policy says a student whose legal residence changes from one attendance zone to another zone within the district once the school year has begun may apply for an inter-district transfer for the remainder of the year. The only exception that if a secondary student who has completed one full year at the current secondary campus may apply for a one-time option to stay in the current attendance zone for the remainder of his or her academic career. We're changing the word secondary into high school. So what the example would be that if a freshman at Forney High School, after they complete their freshman year, and then that summer the parents move to the north side of town, that student would have an option to stay at Forney High School and continue to be a Jackrabbit. The other exception there I pointed out is the transfer stipulations in the new admin regs. We went ahead and included that in our policy to read the district shall not provide transportation for approved transfers except as those that are provided in administrative regulations. We're bringing this to you today as a first and final reading. Districts in which the local policy adoption process calls for 2 readings of a proposed policy, which Forney ISD does to be in compliance, we are asking the board to implement the process for emergency adoption with 1 reading. BF Local states emergency adoption may occur in 1 meeting if special circumstances demand an immediate response. And so we're bringing it to you today as a first and final reading.
Thank you, Mr. Gear. Are there any questions from the board? If no further questions, then I'd ask for a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Andrews, have a second? Have a second? Johnson?
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you very much. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you, Mr. Gear. Moving on then to item 11, consideration and possible approval of Chromebook purchase. At this time, Ms. Morsack will present the proposed Chromebook purchase policies. Ms. Morsack?
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. It is that time of year again. We kind of talked to you about this last meeting. Because of growth, we're looking to add 10,500 Chromebooks this time. Last purchase was about 7,500. Just to put it in perspective for you, we are staying at that 4-to-1 ratio that we set at, you really should say pre-K 3, because we do provide Chromebooks down even at the pre-K level, and then 1-to-1 412. Riverside Technologies, we did put out an RFP. Riverside Technologies came back with the best proposal. We're looking at the G6, HP G6 EE model, 11-inch. It is the same model we have right now, but it's the 6th generation. We're currently on the 4th generation. So we skipped over 5, and 6 is the brand new one. It still has that same rugged design that our last Chromebook did. Has the spill proof. If a kid spills water on it, it does not damage the motherboard. It also has that drop rate protection on it with the rugged design on the case. We are continuing to go with self-insuring those devices. That's gone very well for us, much better than even we anticipated. Most of our damage is accidental. Screen breakage is our #1, and that's just kids using it and stuff happening. Life happens with those. So it's gone very, very well this time, and we want to continue with that. Just so you know, the overall price for those 10,500 machines is $2,021,250. And that is a little bit more than if we would have bought them 3 years ago. There's a couple reasons for that. One is the price of Chromebooks have gone up, and they've gone up about $24 per machine, that device overall. So from the lowest bid we got 3 years ago to the lowest bid we have now is a $24 difference. We're only going to see an $18 difference, and that's because the Google management price has changed a little bit. That is something that you have to purchase to be able to manage those devices from a large rollout. And what we're going to be able to get this time is a service that unboxes them, runs updates on them, barcodes and asset tags all of them, sorts them, and configures them for us. We kind of ran some numbers, and if we were to do that ourselves, it takes about 12 minutes, 12 and a half minutes per device to do all that. We had all of our techs kind of race to see who could do it the fastest. So at your top speed, you're looking at 12 minutes. With 10,500 devices at 12 minutes, I wrote down some numbers. That's 2,200 hours, which is almost 300 days. That would take 8 full-time employees 36 days to manage. I don't have that. If we want to look at adding some staff, we can, but so it is a very well worthwhile service. They will also warehouse those for us and deliver them to the location we need. So we don't have to have an air-conditioned place. I don't know if you've been to our warehouse, but it's very small right now, and we really don't have a place to store them. So Riverside is a company we've been working with. We have a very good working relationship with them. They've been providing all of our Chromebooks that we've had to add for growth in the last several months, and we're very excited about this. So any questions on the Chromebook purchase?
Thank you for that. I know that that'll really take a workload off somebody because we've had to do them all in the past. So.
We have, and we were fortunate that it was a little bit smaller load and it was a little bit different process, but now that there's 3,000 more devices, plus we're maintaining the devices we have, it's just getting to be a very large beast.
Any other questions?
Mr. Ferris, just a couple simple questions.
Yes, sir.
What do we do with the old ones, and when are we rolling out the new?
Excellent questions. We are going to retain all the old devices. We are looking at some fair market value to see if some of the seniors may want to buy their device. We have not made that determination yet, but we're looking into that, and maybe we'll propose that to the board. We need devices in our depots right now. So if a child breaks their Chromebook, I want to be able to hand them an old Chromebook and say, here you go, we'll get yours fixed, but here's one in the meantime. If a child forgets their Chromebook, something happens and they need one, we want to be able to have a device to give them, and we don't have that right now. So we will be stocking our depots with older Chromebooks. We're also going to be able to use those in some areas like our libraries to put some class sets there. So we have plenty of use for them. 100% of them are not going to come back in the best condition, but we'll be able to part them out to keep the ones that are in good condition working. So we have a lot of uses for them and plans for them. Your second question was? Rollout. So in the past, we wanted to make sure that every kid had a Chromebook on the first day of school. They have one right now. So we want to wait until they come back at this exact moment. Our plan is to wait till they come back next school year and do an exchange, one for one. That way, they start the year with a new device that's fresh and pretty and grand. We will have some time for parents to come in the summer for new enrollees so that they start the school year with their Chromebook. But we plan on doing that a little bit differently this year because we don't have to do it all at once, so we can do it at the campus and roll them out by grade level there.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? And I hear none. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Ferris, I make a motion that the board approve the Chromebook
sorry.
purchase as presented by the administration.
Thank you much. Do I have a second? Second. Dr. Terry, do you have a recommendation?
I do. The Chromebooks have been a great addition and really allowing our teachers to do a lot of things in the classrooms that we wouldn't be able to do with a textbook. And so we would recommend continuing in our one-to-one process and approving the purchase over $100,000.
Thank you for that. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 12, possible consideration and action to approve resolution authorizing the issuance of Forney Independent School District Public Property Finance Act contract for district equipment purchase, providing for the payment of the PPFAC, specifying the terms and structure of the PPFAC, and resolving other matters incident and related to this issuance, sale, payment, and deliverance of the PPFAC. Mr. John Chase, Chief Financial Officer, will present this.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. So we've just approved the purchase of the Chromebooks, and so now we need to secure the financing of it. And what we've done is I've contacted our financial advisor, Christian Merritt, and we've kind of done some pro forma runs on what that would look like, you know, as just kind of by way of bringing back to your remembering during the budget process this summer, we set aside $700,000, a little over, to handle the payment out of general operating funds first, to offset or to lower the amount that we'd finance for the rest of the purchase. And so what would happen here is that we would pay $700,000 out of current resources and finance the $1.3 million through our financial advisor. And so, based on the information that we've got right now, what that would look like is that we'd make our first payment in February of 2020, and then the second and last payment in February of 21. The closing costs on the loan would be somewhere in the $15,000 range. It's probably be a little slightly less than that, but I wanted to be a little, I guess, conservative or liberal with the estimate, just so if it happened to be slightly higher than I think the financial advisor's portion would be $10,000, and then the bond attorneys and things of that nature. It's probably going to be somewhere in the $2,000 range, but again, $15,000 would be more than enough to cover the closing costs. And at currently the interest rate that we're projecting that we would finance this on would be 3.15%, which over the life of the loan, that would mean about $75,000 in interest cost. And so what we're asking for you to do tonight is to adopt this resolution. This would give myself and the superintendent the authority to complete the loan transaction on behalf of the district at the terms and conditions that are in the best interest of the district. So if it were that the terms would change at a great amount other than what we've just presented, we would definitely bring that back to you for consideration, but right now I think the terms that we believe those are going to be pretty close to what we finally negotiate, and we're asking for the authority to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chase. Are there any questions from the board? Dr. Terry, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, sir. I would recommend that you do approve the resolution to give us the authority to go negotiate the financing options. Financing's been a good solution for us, and I think the interest rates that we can receive right now are pretty efficient compared to many other APRs out there right now.
Thank you very much. So you've heard the presentation, Dr. Terry's recommendation. Do I have a motion for item 12?
So moved.
Mr. Johnson? Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And I hear none. So it is approved. Thank you very much. Item 13 we took out of order earlier and did close session. We're moving on to item 14, consideration and possible approval regarding the employment of professional contract personnel. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion we approve the personnel as recommended by administration.
Thank you, Ms. Dobbs. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none, so it is approved. Thank you very much. Item 15, consideration and possible approval for superintendent pursuant sanctions for educator abandonment of contract as presented in closed session. May I have a motion?
Ferris, I move the board find that good cause did not exist for the employee discussed in closed session to abandon the contract. Authorize the superintendent to take all necessary steps.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Do I have a second? Ms. Dobbs, thank you very much. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. So it is approved. Then moving on to item 16, consider approval for the purchase of real property consisting of 4 tracts of land in the J. Lopez Survey, abstract number 286, Kaufman County, Texas, as discussed in closed session. Do I have a motion?
Ferris, I move that the board authorize the superintendent to sign the real estate contract to purchase the real property as discussed in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Green. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none, and so it is approved. Thank you very much. That is all of our items. Moving on to item 17, announcements. Thursday, December 20th, a district-wide Christmas party. Monday, December 24th will be, through January the 4th will be our Christmas break. Monday, January 14th will be our next regular board meeting, and then Monday, February 4th will be the next regular meeting after that. Any other items amiss, Dr. Terry?
No, sir.
So it is my pleasure to announce at 8:16 p.m., I now call this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for all attending tonight. And Merry Christmas.